multilateral environmental agreements, and among other processes, emerging policies, avenues, and also the future and the first plenary of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, the Global Framework of Chemicals, and its first international conference, and many more activities and global efforts. So this session will explore how intergenerational and right-based approaches can strengthen governance across global framework, addressing chemicals, waste, and pollution, spotlighting youth engagements and the avenue of the engagements across all these processes. If we move to the next slides quickly on the agenda, we will be starting with the launch of the Youth to Beat Pollution. I'm accompanied today with my co-facilitator on the Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution Working Group under CYMG, Jannah Radi, and we will be quickly covering the Youth to Beat Pollution campaign and the launch of it, moving the discussions towards the global efforts towards the sound management of chemicals and waste, updates from the key multilateral processes and conventions, and then having discussions about empowering youth for intergenerational equity, is focusing on advancing zero waste and the Global Plastic Pollution Treaty, and then with a quick closing of the session. We are very honored to have a great list of speakers, and we will be moving forward quickly with the launch of the Youth to Beat Pollution. The next slides, I'll be starting just a quick introduction about what is Youth to Beat Pollution, and then my colleague Jannah will continue. So the Youth to Beat Pollution is a campaign and a platform that aims to catalyze the existing beat pollution under the avenue of UNEP campaigns by creating space for youth priorities across the different level to tackle pollution affecting human, animal, and ecosystem health. And this is meant to be a platform to engage towards all forms of pollution, towards having a coherence and consistent engagement with youth key messaging. What we realized across the engagements in many different processes that youth are aligned in the priorities when it comes to the urgency, the need of acting with urgency, the timely response for all the challenges and crises caused by pollution, as well as the other cross-cutting environmental impacts of human health and the environment. So I'll be stopping here, passing the floor to my colleague Jannah, and we will be launching the campaign in a few minutes, so stay tuned.
Thank you very much, Asil, and thank you very much for our speakers for joining us today in this launch, and also to hear from their perspectives. And thank you to all of you for keeping attentive throughout the day with us. So as mentioned, the Youth to Beat Pollution launch is an initiative under the Children and Youth Major Group to really try to spotlight and create more space for young people to highlight their initiatives, share knowledge amongst each other, and also gain capacity to beat different forms of pollution. I know all of us are gathered here in beautiful Nairobi, Kenya, but we all come from different places all around the world. And so we're learning from each other here in these spaces. But once we go back home, we are also beating pollution in our own contexts. And so this is the beautiful part about this campaign, is we come together in the same space, but implement projects in our own contexts to really see the impact at a local level. And with that, we had a regionalization of this initiative first in October of this year, where it was a soft launch, you could say, where we had regional forums in 5 different regions online, where young people came together to discuss a few types of pollutants, not all of them, being mercury, nitrogen, and talking in general about zero waste. And today we would like to formally launch that we are going to be tackling all the different types of pollutants together. And we would highly encourage you to pull out your phones and take a scan of the QR code and to engage in a small little activity with us to boost efforts to beat pollution together. If I may ask for the next slide. And this is right before we go into our opening intervention. If I may, could I ask you to stand up? For all of us to stand up, and we will have our social media, Oni, I believe, is in the room as well. Hi, Oni. Oni is wonderful. So, on my count, I'm going to say youth 2, and I want to hear from you. Yes. That's great. Thank you, Joseph. Joseph is our UNIF young champion, by the way, so already ahead. So let's try a first trial. Youth 2. I can hear it louder, I think. No, come on, let's do this together. Youth 2. Okay, are you ready, Oni? Well, maybe. Okay, sounds good. Are we ready? Let's coordinate and show synergy in the room. Youth 2, beat pollution. Okay, ready? Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Youth 2, beat pollution. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And please do scan the codes to join the movement. And with that, I would like to move on to our opening remarks. If we can go to the next 2 slides. Yes, that's perfect. So our opening remarks, we have the pleasure and gratitude to have the global coordinator for the Chemicals and Pollution sub-program under the Industry and Economy Division of UNEP, Ms. Christina Zuka, who will be providing opening remarks. Thank you very much for being with us, Ms. Christina. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And it's really great to hear about this new platform to beat pollution. I think this is really what we need. I will just briefly, first of all, say welcome distinguished delegates, colleagues, and especially young leaders to this very important dialogue. And I will say a few words about why intergenerational approaches, human rights approaches, and the role of youth are so important to address chemicals, pollution, and waste-related problems. As you may have noticed, chemicals and pollution is intimately intertwined with rights and justice. Youth today, for example, they experience a higher lifetime exposure to hazardous chemicals, to pollution, to plastic contamination than previous generations. Living in an environment that is free of pollution is a precondition for health, for well-being, prosperity, and for the exercise of rights. But at the same time, the exercise of rights, in particular participatory rights, good governance, and a forward-looking approach that takes into account future generations are really important at the core of beating pollution. This is all embedded in the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, which the General Assembly has sanctioned a couple of years ago. The rights-based approach demands access to information. For example, do we know what chemicals we are exposed to in our clothes, in our food? Meaningful participation so that we can influence decision-making, but also accountability, holding governments and industries accountable to avoid pollution. Intergenerational equity demands that today's generations protect future generations from the impacts of environmental degradation. This is not something abstract because hazardous chemicals persist in the environment for decades and centuries, and they accumulate in food chains and even in bodies, including human bodies. Plastic waste, for example, breaks into microplastics, again, something that will impact our environment and our bodies in the future. So, in brief, pollution created today will affect generations long after we are gone. So, with this in mind, we need to make sure that we act through these 2 lenses: rights-based approach, future-looking thinking, not short-sighted thinking. So youth are not only benefiting from having rights recognized and enjoying rights, but they're also advocates, defenders. They can really make action possible. There are many youth movements worldwide, and they show us how this is possible. They're already demonstrating a lot of good engagement. And this engagement is very well aligned to the idea of prevention rather than cure, because we can raise awareness before issues start, in a way. Youth can demand action from decision makers, hold them accountable. Youth can change lifestyles. They can choose to go for zero waste, pollution-free, toxic-free products and services. They can promote new thinking and innovation, and they can challenge outdated, like linear economy approaches. They can participate in policy processes, and I think we will hear from that about that later from the various panel members, and they can help inform action. And maybe most importantly, they can also prepare to be more responsible, or more than today's, responsible decision makers of tomorrow. And maybe also pollution prevention, circularity, sound management of chemicals and waste, they can also create jobs. They require very specific skills, but also a broad range of skills, not only super specialized. So they can be really at the center of economic growth. Think, for example, about a more reuse and repair economy as compared to a throwaway economy. So I'm very encouraged to listen to the launch of the platform, but also to see that you are gathering here in advance of YEA, which will look at some resolutions that are addressing very important topics in this domain. And I really hope that we can learn more from you, from colleagues, as I said, also from MEAs and other global fora, but also from you about how are you planning to use your voice, not only in these policy processes, but also as you go back home and you can actually influence in your day-to-day life behavior. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Christina, and thank you also for the highlight of the equity and justice aspects and how this is driving benefits and actions towards addressing the impact of chemicals waste and also actions towards the prevention, and highlighting also the opportunity for youth to engage at the different level, as well as taking this away back home at the different community level, at universities, at job places, to also champion the actions towards pollution prevention, and also in line with the title of the session, Beating Pollution. So without further ado, we will move forward to the first panel discussion, which will be moderated by Jannah Radi, and also has a reach of expertise, combine different perspectives of the different relevant processes, MEAs, and also the voices of the youth engaging in the space. Our first high-level panel focuses on global efforts towards the sound management of chemicals and waste, with updates from key multilateral processes and conventions. Jannah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Asil. And thank you, Ms. Christina, for the opening remarks. So for our next panel discussion, we are going to have a diverse set of speakers, some online and some who have graciously accepted our invitation to join in person, although very busy schedules, so thank you. And the panel will be on global efforts towards sound management of chemicals and waste. There's roughly 2 guiding questions in this panel discussion that we want to hear from our speakers on. Firstly is on where are there key opportunities and challenges in advancing global efforts on sound management of chemicals and waste, and where there's opportunities for synergies, as there's a lot of different conventions, instruments, and a new science policy panel. And secondly is focusing really on the youth, on the role of stakeholders, including young people, and to improve how cooperation can be improved with younger people, whether that's early career researchers or policymakers, to really advance the sound management of chemicals and waste. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Emmanuel, who is the project associate at the diplomatic division of the Embassy of Switzerland in Nairobi, who will be giving us some reflections and insights. Mr. Emmanuel, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jannah, and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you, young leaders. And first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to Switzerland to attend this important event. We really think it's crucial to beat pollution and to see so many young people determined to do just that. It's really encouraging. It is my pleasure to speak about important developments in international chemicals and waste governance. This has been a priority for Switzerland for many years, and Switzerland has been an active and ambitious actor with concrete proposals as well as financial support. The global cluster on chemicals and waste has been particularly active this year. And while we can celebrate progress, challenges remain. The sound management of chemicals and waste is a goal we have to fully reach. Fortunately, we do not start from scratch. Together, we have built a strong and resilient architecture. The Minamata Convention, of course, the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, the Global Framework on Chemicals, and the essential contributions of UNEP and WHO. This year, the BRS COPs took important decisions. For example, the parties to the Stockholm Convention agreed to list new persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, under Annex A, committing themselves to global elimination of these hazardous substances. Under the Basel Convention, parties have adopted a new strategic framework which will go from 2025 to 2031, and updated technical guidelines, strengthening the Convention's capacity to manage modern waste streams such as plastics, textiles, and hazardous wastes. Under the Rotterdam Convention, 2 pesticides were added to the prior informed consent list, meaning their trade now requires explicit consent by importing countries, a concrete step towards safer regulation of hazardous pesticides. The COP was held in Geneva. The Minamata COP6 took the following important decisions. COP6 adopted a global phase-out of dental amalgam by 2034, marking a historic milestone to eliminate a major source of mercury use, thereby protecting human health and reducing mercury pollution worldwide. Parties also agreed to strengthen control over mercury-added products and trade, notably targeting the elimination of mercury in skin lightening cosmetics and tightening regulation of mercury supply, trade, and waste. Moreover, COP6 reinforced cooperation across multilateral environmental agreements by integrating mercury reduction efforts with broader frameworks, including linking it to the emerging global chemicals and waste architecture, biodiversity strategies, and using digital tools and capacity building to enhance data, transparency, and implementation. The Minamata COP was also held in Geneva. This past June in Uruguay, the chemicals and waste cluster was significantly reinforced with the creation of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, or ISP-CWP. This is a landmark. A space where science can clearly inform policy is one of the most valuable assets for global governance. Switzerland has been committed to science policy panels, to the science policy panel from the start. Alongside other countries, we proposed its creation at YEA-5, and we supported the process all the way to its adoption. Our commitment continues. From the 2nd to the 6th February 2026, Switzerland will have the honor of hosting the first plenary session of the panel in Geneva. One important decision at that first session will be the location of the panel secretariat. Switzerland is offering Geneva as a host city, at the heart of the international cluster on chemicals and waste, housing the panel alongside the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm, Minamata Conventions, the GFC, UNEP, WHO, and other relevant institutions. Will facilitate collaboration, prevent duplication, and ensure a highly efficient use of resources. The Swiss offer comprises, first, an annual contribution of 500,000 francs, and I now realize that I should probably translate that into a more widely used currency. So a franc is, I think, right now about $1.30. So this would be around $650,000 to the ISP CWP Secretariat every year. Second, an initial contribution of million francs towards initial activities of the panel, such as capacity building. So it's again $1,300,000. The provision of adequate office space within the International Environment House in Geneva, accompanied by a contribution of 50,000 francs per year until 2029, with possibility of renewal. Fourth, an initial contribution of 10,000 francs, so $13,000 per staff members, to furnish and equip the Secretariat in the International Environment House. And fifth, the free rental of the Geneva International Conference Center, premises for meetings of the ISP-CWP. At a time when multilateralism must show both ambition and efficiency, building on a proven dynamic cluster is the most constructive and sustainable path forward. Dear colleagues, our journey forward to the sound management of chemicals and waste is not complete yet. But with the chemicals and waste governance cluster, we are well equipped to advance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manuel, for sharing the progress. You actually provided a great overview of the progress within the chemicals, waste, and pollution space, and set the scene very well for secretariats of the conventions that you have mentioned to also speak on updates. And thank you for providing insight into the role Switzerland is playing to really advance the sound management of chemicals, waste, and pollution. I do know that you have to leave us for a meeting as the time is tight. We did want to have room for discussion, but we understand the tightness of time, and so it's okay for whenever your schedule you do need to leave. That's okay, and we understand. And thank you again for sharing insights with us, and we look forward to the negotiations around the resolution tabled by Switzerland and UNEA around sound management of chemicals and waste to really see that advancement forward. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to one of our speakers online. Miss Maria Cristina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you very much. So for the next speaker, we have Miss Maria Cristina, the Senior Policy and Strategy Advisor Office of the Executive Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. So from the previous speaker, Mr. Emmanuel has provided some insights of all the different progress that happened this year in these three important conventions. Ms. Maria, we would also love to hear from you, from your perspectives. Where are there further opportunities to advance global efforts and also to synergize the BRS conventions amongst other multilateral environmental agreements, existing and new ones, such as the ongoing plastics treaty negotiations, for example? And from your viewpoint, how can young people play more of a role and be supported to engage in these processes, to have their voices heard, and also support an implementation on the ground? Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting the BRS Secretariat to participate in this very important event. And good afternoon to everyone. I'll just start with giving you a bit of an overview of what the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions are. They are three MEAs that share a common objective of protecting human health and the environment from chemicals and waste. As you know, chemicals and waste are ubiquitous to the environment, and they're found all over the globe. They're visible, yet they're part of our daily lives. Their global production, as well as all the distribution of chemicals-based products, continues to increase. The Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions address some of the most significant chemicals and waste pollution that has been identified over the past decades. However, their scope expands beyond pollution. As you all know, the three environmental planetary crises of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution are intertwined. And as much, multilateral efforts to address the triple environmental crisis are deeply connected. Progress in one area frequently supports and underpins efforts in another area. For example, mitigating climate change and reducing pollution addresses two of the most serious threats to biodiversity. Reducing pollution protects biodiversity and supports resilience to climate change. Hence, any efforts to build connections and promote integrated action and solutions across the various environmental clusters and at all levels is crucial. Multilateral environmental agreements have emerged as one of the best ways of institutionalizing intergovernmental cooperation and triggering national action in the environmental sector. However, we cannot progress if we continue to work in silos. We need to break them and expand the cooperation across thematic clusters of the MEAs to enable room for innovative thinking and creative solutions. The Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions have been working together for at least now a decade. And we hope to continue to work together and join forces with other environmental agreements. We believe, and from my perspective, I think that engaging youth right now is key. And why is it key? It is key because it's looking into the future, it's ensuring sustainability of how we do things. Some of us have been in the business for over 3 decades, like me. And I do hope that all the efforts that some of us have put in working together will be taken on in the long run with the younger generations. There are many things that can be done at the national level. Working on the ground is one of those. Just on daily actions that you do, when you look into how do you recycle the waste that you produce at home, to the type of chemicals that are included in the items that you purchase. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maria, for your intervention. There is claps in the room. I don't know if you can hear it online. But thank you for providing an overview of the BRS conventions and also providing insight into how the actions at a community level also translate into supporting implementation of a global convention. So thank you for that, to really show young people that what they do in their communities, in their schools, in their universities can also be in alignment with their national action plans, and to really support implementation of these critical conventions. We also, just a note for people in the room, we will have some time for Q&A in the end. So if you do have a question for speakers, make sure you keep note of it and who you want to direct your question to. We will open the floor after the speakers have completed their interventions. With that, we will move on to Mr. Richard Gutierrez, who I think is online. Mr. Richard, are you with us? Okay, we don't see him yet. So just because of shortness of time, we also have Dr. Kay Williams, who I do see online. Yes, perfect. We can see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Kay Williams is the head of the Global Framework on Chemicals. And so we've been hearing about the GFC and the Global Framework on Chemicals yesterday and today. So we're really looking forward to hearing more about where the GFC can play a role in this chemicals, waste, and pollution architecture to help with synergies, and also the steps being taken to enable and support the role of young people to contribute to this framework. Dr. Williams, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, coming through. Great. Lovely. Thank you for that introduction. Just as a reminder, the Global Framework on Chemicals was one of the newest frameworks to be agreed. I think it's now been superseded by the Intergovernmental Science Panel that we just heard about from the Swiss. It is an unusual agreement, and it is a framework agreement that is voluntary, and it involves a wide range of different stakeholders, and including, I think, the children and youth sector, which is an important stakeholder group for us. The framework was adopted in 2023 in Bonn, and we will be having our first conference in November 2026 in Geneva, having had an open-ended working group session back-to-back with the Science Policy Panel in Uruguay in June. So in terms of the opportunities that we have under the framework, the differences that we have is that it is voluntary. And that brings itself some challenges, but it also brings us key opportunities because it allows us to provide more flexibility when we're considering solutions. It means that we can really work on how to change behaviors, and we can also take more risks and innovate. And I think that's one of the huge strengths of the framework, that it allows different people to come together, actors that don't normally speak to each other, such as philanthropists, academics, chemometric specialists, industry, governments. And they can all come together in the view of collaboration to try and make these solutions that we all need on a sort of multi-stakeholder basis to transform not only the industry, but also transform the planet in terms of our pollution and our threats. Other groups that we work closely with include the health and labour organisations. And this is a track that when we're sitting in the environment, it's very difficult sometimes to break those boundaries and say, listen to us. What we're doing in terms of regulating or controlling and assisting in the control of the safe and sustainable management chemicals has an impact on what you're doing. And that is a message that is difficult for some to hear because they get focused on their very specific agenda. And we are working really hard to break down some of those boundaries to say, why should health colleagues, why should people sitting in occupational health and safety care about what the framework does? And the answer is that we sit under the environment, but what we can do is really harmonize and bring along some of those regulatory and legislative structures and systems that will assist them in their success. We know that the chemical sector as a business is very profitable, and it does innovate at an extremely high rate. And I think this is where we also see youth as being absolutely key in the future, because some of people will be working. They are the future of the industry, and they are the future of innovating safer chemicals for us all to use. 95% of manufactured goods contain chemicals. We want chemicals. We like the benefits from chemicals, but we need to make sure that we're using them responsibly in products that are aligned with the needs and that are essential, and that we're allowing for them to be used in a circular fashion, and where they need to be disposed, that they are disposed of safely. So it's essential that we work closely with our industry colleagues. It's essential that in terms of education, that we have the youth are not only working in terms of sustainable chemistry and sustainable solutions, but they're also looking at the technology and harnessing the new technologies that we have to be able to mine the information that is out there, to make sure that we can present that information in a way that we can communicate, and that we spread it as far as we can in order to realize some of these behavior changes that we need. We have challenges. I think the geopolitical situation is always going to be a challenge, and the area that we work in isn't always prioritized. And I think we need to keep communicating with senior leaders, ministers, any opportunity that we can, and even mobilizing the public to raise concerns and get the political elite and governments to listen about why pollution matters. So our work is complicated. It is very broad, and it is difficult sometimes to communicate and understand where we need to take action. But I think the synergies that we already have, I work very closely with Maria Cristina, I work very closely with the Minamata Convention, and we work very closely with others in Nairobi, Tessa from the ISP and CWP. Because at the heart, we do have a good seat of expertise within Geneva. We've also got a lot of expertise in Nairobi, and together we can actually make the transformatory change that we need to beat pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. There's also lots of applause in the room. I'm not sure if you heard that. But thank you very much for the intervention and for providing insight into what the GFC is for those who have not heard about it before in the room. So that increases interests, hopefully, to engage and to learn more about it. And also, thank you for bringing up the point of pollution is not always necessarily prioritized. And this is something that I think young people can play a big role in, given that they see the impacts firsthand on the ground, and can play a role in raising awareness, increasing projects, research around the problem, and raising more political will in their contexts. And really looking forward to next year's international conference, and best of luck in preparation for that. And we hope to further collaborations ahead. And with that, we will move on to the next speaker. We have the pleasure of having Ms. Tessa Govers, who is the head of the interim secretariat of the newest panel that we've all been talking about in almost every session, so no pressure. But thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure. Of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, or in short, ISP-CWP. Get used to saying it because this will be the new panel that hopefully we'll all engage in. And so we would like to hear from you on reflections on the panel's role in strengthening the science policy interface on chemicals, waste and pollution, as well as sharing insights on the approaches that can be taken, given it's a new panel still building its architecture, that can enhance cooperation with stakeholders, particularly young people and early career professionals, to support the operationalization of the panel. And given the panel right before this was on GEO, I believe, and there's the fellowships program, for example, in GEO. So just reflections on how can the new science policy panel build its architecture to be inclusive for early career professionals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gianna, and thank you very much for inviting us to your very interesting intergenerational dialogue for a toxic-free future. We're very happy to be part of this, and very pleased to hear that you've already been discussing a lot the potential of the panel, I suppose. So indeed, my name is Tessa Goverse. I'm the principal coordinator and head of the interim secretariat of the ISP-CWP, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, that was established on the 20th of June in Punta del Este in Uruguay. And this is an independent intergovernmental panel with the objective to strengthen the science policy interface for the sound management of chemicals and waste, and we heard the need for that, and pollution prevention. We also heard from Christina in the opening that prevention is key if you want to move towards a toxic-free future. So the membership of the panel is open to state members of the United Nations and UN non-member observer states that have expressed the interest to become a member of the panel. All of the national governments that were present in Uruguay, they are considered like the founding members of the panel, and we actually get weekly interest, and I'm happy to share with you that we currently have 110 members of the panel, and still counting. So as we indeed already heard from the representative of Switzerland, the panel will be convening for its very first inaugural plenary meeting. And the plenary is the decision-making or governing body of this new panel. In February 2026, from the 2nd to the 6th, in Geneva, Switzerland, hosted and highly supported by the government of Switzerland. And it will be preceded on Sunday, the 1st of February, by regional and stakeholder meetings. We very much are looking forward to seeing many members, but also observers joining us in Geneva, as this plenary session will be very key in operationalizing the panel itself. There's key aspects that still need to be agreed. Some of you who were present in Uruguay or have been following the process online will know that there was an agreement on the foundational document for the panel. But how to exactly operationalize and put that in practice needs to be worked out, for example, through the rules of procedure. So some of these will need to be finalized, and therefore this first plenary meeting is very important to move towards the panel really delivering on its promise. Our sister panels, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, and the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, the IPBES, serve several functions at the science policy interface. And this is, of course, also the case for the new Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution. The foundational document now specifies 5 specific functions that I will talk about. But when I actually was hearing your question, thinking about what is the role of the new ISP-CWP in the science policy interface, it dawned on me like actually it is an embodiment of the science policy interface. Of course, it has specific functions, and I also would like to really commend the Children and Youth Major Group for having very actively followed this whole process between 2022 and 2025 through the ad hoc open-ended ad hoc open-ended working group. It was such a long name. Actually, our title for the new panel is way shorter than what we had before. You wouldn't believe it, but really, no, this is actually the process, the negotiation that led to the establishment of the panel. So I just heard all of you when you were establishing the Youth to Beat Pollution new platform, and actually I thought you should commend yourself for your engagement that actually led to the establishment of this new panel. And as the representative of Switzerland said, this was a landmark. So can we get a clap for the new panel? Thank you so much. So back to the functions. What the functions are of this new panel are conducting assessments. I think you just had a whole session on assessment on the global environment outlook. Undertaking horizon scanning, providing up-to-date and relevant information, integrating capacity building in all the functions of the work of the panel, and actually before that in the, I'm a bit random with my order today, facilitating information sharing. And maybe we can dive a little bit more in these specific functions. So this is for this particular panel. And of course, when you also say its role in the broader science policy interface, of course, we have a specific scope to this panel. But as was also mentioned by one of the previous speakers, it's really key if we are able to address climate change and pollution issues that will benefit, for example, the pressure that is hugely on biodiversity. So it is quite key that we actually now look also across, but the panel itself, of course, has its own focus. And then it's global. It's not to deny that other important science policy work is not taking place. And we need to also ensure that we collaborate, coordinate, and build upon that. So first, we have undertaking horizon scanning as a key function, and you can see it all in our foundational document. This function will identify issues of relevance to policymakers and, where possible, propose evidence-based options to address them. And then next, we have conducting assessments. This function involves conducting assessments of current issues and identifying potential evidence-based options to address those issues, in particular, those relevant to developing countries. And this is a function that you're perhaps most familiar with from the other science policy interfaces, such as the IPCC, IPBES, and also the Global Environment Outlook, who will soon be concluding GEO7. Next, we have providing up-to-date and relevant information. And this key function ensures that the panel provides this information, but also identify key gaps in scientific research, encourages and supports communication between scientists and policymakers, explains and disseminates findings for different audiences, and raises public awareness. So this function really speaks to the need to ensure that the assessments are not allowed to be filed and sit on a shelf or on a hard drive, but once they are completed, really speak to the importance that the panel has been able to realize as a catalyst of these discussions and resulting in clear and impactful deliverables that are then really able to be disseminated and used to raise public awareness. So the function also the functions also includes the facilitation of information sharing with countries, in particular developing countries seeking scientific information. And maybe it's also good to indeed go back a little bit to the origin of why this panel was so much needed. IPCC was established in 1988. Climate change, there were a lot of questions around it, what it really was, and really to better understand it, this panel was created. IPBES was established in 2012. So since 2012, policymakers can turn for global biodiversity issues to this panel. And there was nothing really in the kind of the scope of the triple planetary crisis to do something similar for pollution. But also there was a call like, actually, there is a lot of knowledge out there. And I heard also my colleague Kay saying like, no, young people, please harness the new technologies that we can use to better access information and share. And I think that is quite key. And also the call for this panel was not only to understand things better, but also we know there are solutions. But in my country, for me as a policymaker, I'm not having access to it. So here people are suffering, and yet somewhere in the world, maybe in another region, there are solutions. So quite a critical other function of the panel. Also, maybe to mention, this is a function that you don't find in the other panels. IPCC very much on assessments, IPBES as well. But horizon scanning and this function, for example, are rather unique to this panel. Then finally, we also have a function that was also already mentioned earlier today, which is on capacity building. And capacity building is really a function about integrating capacity building in all the functions and the work of the panel to strengthen the science policy interface. That's important to understand. The foundational document specifies that capacity building should enhance individual capacities of scientists, policymakers, and other relevant stakeholders, and thereby institutional capacities, particularly again in developing countries. They also should be guided by capacity building priorities identified by governments and other stakeholders related to the functions of the panel. And they can also be encouraged to access different forms of knowledge, data, and best practices, and enable the dissemination and encouraging the utilization of deliverables of the panel at international, but also sub-regional, regional, and national levels. So in so doing, the panel is really aiming to ensure geographically balanced participation and avoid duplication of work. So as the panel is operationalizing its processes, its procedures that still need to be put in place to deliver these functions, the continued engagement of stakeholders, including youth, is key. And also to continue engaging to harness the expertise, your expertise, including expertise that is also gained not only academically, but also through experiences. It will be very important to the success and the relevance of this panel. So the operating principles and approaches of the panel, as established and in Uruguay, they specify that the work is to be carried out guided by taking an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach that incorporates a broad range of relevant disciplines and sources, including appropriate sectoral, scientific, technical, and socioeconomic expertise, and taking into account as appropriate relevant forms of knowledge, including indigenous knowledge. And this upcoming plenary, there will be a number of opportunities for continued engagements, including with the children and youth major group. So you asked me about that as well. So I know I'm a bit lengthy, so you stop me if you want me to stop. But of course, this is a key question for you. And I think from the areas where this panel is going to now benefit from harnessing the expertise, you already hear, now take your pick. There's so many areas of expertise that actually come into the picture when looking at now the scope of this panel. But of course, also specifically, as was mentioned before, it's important to engage on the process, but also to see what actually can be delivered on the issue of pollution in the various respective areas within which you are working. But okay, the panel is operationalizing further right now. There might be other opportunities and avenues for youth engagement and early career professionals, especially academics. And I would actually encourage you to think a little bit beyond the first plenary. Of course, the first plenary is key. As I mentioned, there will be an opportunity for stakeholder meetings the day before. So please keep coordinated, keep on topic, as you've really been doing very, very well, also with the other stakeholder groups throughout the negotiation process. And now see what comes out of the first plenary. On the development of the work program, who can actually determine the issues that the panel will work on? For sure, governments, but will there be no space for others? Preparation of deliverables, very interesting. You just had a session on how an actual assessment is delivered. Now the expertise will need to be brought in and can come from various experts. So for those of you more in the academic area, this is a key area, but don't expect the first plenary to really focus on this, because the first plenary receives everything that the open-end working group has done, and it needs to take some key decisions. Where will the secretariat be located? Who will be the chair? Who will be on the bureau? The rules of procedure, etc. So, and then of course we also have the development of the work program, conflict of interest sent to the panel, and how to deliver and clear the assessments and other outputs of the panel. So, but think therefore a bit more into kind of the long term for the other kind of processes that steps up once the panel is really ready to move and has an approved work program. I also would really like to invite you to follow our further webinars in the lead up to the panel. We have one that is actually coming up in December 16th on engaging scientists and experts. We also have all the documents, working documents up and running, and some information documents, including with some of the bits that we just learned about also from the government of Switzerland will be made available. But for you, the primeur, all our working documents are already available in advanced English, not yet all translated. Do your bit also on raising awareness. This is the time. We have the panel. So that is really something that we now should kind of reach out to the world on. And then finally, I also do want to now listen to what you are planning, of course, very carefully, but I think maybe that should be shared more widely. So I also would like to invite Jana, Asil, whoever else has been engaged very much on this process to join us on December the 16th and also speak to your plans with regard to expertise and scientific support that you see forthcoming to the panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Tessa, and thank you very much for the comprehensive overview of the new panel. And congratulations again. This is a landmark decision, and definitely would love to be a part of the intersessional period of webinars. Happy to further discuss and find opportunity. And I think we have our final speaker before the next panel. Apologies again for the delay. So Joseph, I will ask you, I'll give you a challenge of being concise. But I'm very, very, very happy and excited to introduce Mr. Joseph Ngotiro, who is one of the UNEP Youth Champions of the Earth this year. Joseph Joseph is a water and environmental engineer and has founded the Kenyan startup Hayapak, which produces biodegradable packaging from the pulp of water hyacinth, which is an invasive weed that covers much of Kenya's lakes. So Joseph, we would love to hear some remarks from you, given that you have harnessed technology and innovation to beat pollution and have been one of the champions of the earth. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Youth to beat pollution. Youth to? Come on, guys, I can't hear you. Youth to? Yeah, more like it. So about 2 or so months ago, I was named the UNEP Young Champion of the Earth. And I did not know of all these technical terms that you just had on this desk. So many interesting opportunities that usually lie in these UN halls and these bodies that are designated to write all these articles and these initiatives that I think young people can take advantage of and tap into it. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So as she mentioned, I run a startup called Hayapak. That is a Kenyan-based startup, but we're also doing some other work in El Salvador, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, and so on. And what we do is that we make products that look like plastics, feel like plastics, and perform like plastics, but they decompose, and they're used for packaging. And interestingly enough, the other guys we also won the Young Champion of the Earth with, Jinali Modi from India, also works on pollution. She converts banana fibers into leather bags. And Noemi Floera from the US, she also works on pollution, water pollution, by converting toxic water into clean water for communities. So if you look around you from where you are, you will realize that everything you see around you was either grown or mined. And mostly it was mined, but usually unsustainably. And that's why we're in the whole mess that we are in, especially of pollution, climate change, and everything else. But that's where we come in, because as young people, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to disrupt that. Traditional manufacturing, as we know it, usually looks for new raw materials every time. That's why we have all these things going on. But then the inspiration for us to beat pollution should be to look at things at their own frugality. This means, what can we do and what can you do differently as opposed to what has been done before? Because when you have nothing to lose, then you have to use whatever you have, which is where we are in right now. So we should stop crying about problems and ask, how do we convert them into opportunities? Because usually opportunities is what lays in disguise as problems. And if we agree to beat pollution, that means that we need to look at things like plastics, rubber, chemicals, air pollution, water pollution, agriculture, food pollution, and so on. And all these things I've mentioned and any other pollution that you might think of, all those are opportunities. That's where the green jobs are coming in, and that's where the jobs of the future are. And that's where you're going to get employed. And if you don't learn the skills of how to deal with all this, then somebody else who learns these skills is going to beat you to get a job or an opportunity or an income or something. And if you want to start something, if you want to create something, it's really important for you to focus on a small niche that you can easily work on, something that you either have the skills on or that you can learn the skills for. Then from there, you dominate and scale. And that's what we've seen the big tech doing in social media and everything else. And we can copy the same playbook and implement it in our case where we want to work on something that is more impactful. And now that we are privileged to have listened to all these speakers and to listen to all these policies, the question is, how do we translate this into a language that then has impact and opportunities, especially for the people who are not privileged enough to be in this room? The people who we left at home, the people who are in communities that ideally are usually left behind when opportunities like this come across. What are we going to do? How are we going to create initiatives? How are we going to create these things that they can then be translated back to helping them? And for us as youth to beat pollution, we need record-breaking outcomes, because we realize that we're going to have more plastic than fish in the oceans come very soon. And we already have mountainfuls of landfills and everything that we are not comfortable with. And for us to have these record-breaking outcomes, we need record-breaking work, which we must do. It is up to us as young people to actually tidy up and tuck in our hands and socks and start working. Because governments won't do this. It's us to do it. Even if we keep on lobbying, we keep on asking them to do something and what, we are the majority. We have the strength, we have the everything else. And that means we need to have more ambitions, and we need to not just ask for permissions to dominate and to innovate, but then we need to build the prototypes and show the world what is possible. So please scan the QR code and let's do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you for your intervention and for the courage that you have to beat pollution in your own community and come up with innovations. And thank you for your inspiring words to the young people. Being cautious of time, we will open the floor for some questions. If I can ask you to please be very brief because we do have a next panel. So we'll take maybe 3 questions, but please, if you are targeting a specific person or want to ask your question to someone specific, please mention that person so we don't waste time thinking who's going to answer which question. And we do have our speakers online as well who are still here, I think. Okay, so we have 3 questions, please.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. My name is Karen Anjiro Kimani, and I am an environmental ambassador and voice of the children. My question goes to Joseph. Children are more affected by air pollution. Just visit the dump site. I know Mr. Joseph knows what I'm talking about. What is the government doing to stop this plastic pollution, cleaning Nairobi River and reducing carbon footprints? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Very important. It's a difficult question. Surely you can share some experiences, maybe. Joseph, we'll take all of the questions just so we can have them answered at once. Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. I'm called Mashi Dolores. I'm from Cameroon, founder of Nature Gives Back. My question goes to both Ms. Tessa and Joseph. Okay, in Cameroon, most of the time we concentrate mostly when we talk about pollution only on plastic. But I decided to go back to my community. I discovered that there in Bamenju, there is no pollution like plastic, but instead soil infertility, let me just put it that way, because the soil is no more producing like it used to be because of pollution coming from chemical fertilizers. And now we need to empower the community to concentrate on natural fertilizer, but they don't want to understand because they're afraid that if they concentrate on natural one, they're spending more money, whereas it's not the case. So I'll asking directly Ms. Tessa, what is the way we can use to really encourage people in the community to be able to come back to natural fertilizer, because the pollution produced by chemical fertilizer is very dangerous? And to Joseph, according to you, what young people engaged in environmental protection can do in such a case to really empower other youth to do the same? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we had one more question. Yes,
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Oyekunle Abdugani from Nigeria.
You have the mic closer a bit so we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm from Nigeria. My name is Oyekunle Abdugani Oyeyemi. I'm from Hygiene Plus. My question goes to the panelists, and it goes thus. Are there any opportunities beyond policy making for young people that they can actually explore? Because we know young people they are full of energies. They have bright ideas in their mind. But ideas alone doesn't do it. We need actions. So what other form of support in terms of tech transfers, exchange programs, trainings, capacity building can young people explore, especially for attending this kind of a platform? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think there were any other questions. Okay, so we have 3 questions. One on air pollution and plastic pollution, I believe, to Joseph. The other on soil pollution and just more increased awareness and knowledge relating to alternatives to beat pollution, so more towards natural organic fertilizers. And then lastly, I guess more technical capacity building for young people to engage in these spaces, which could be what the ISP CWP offers if member states agree towards that. Our speakers, if you would like to answer the questions and as concise as possible, because the next moderator is very fiercely looking down at me for the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. Quite interesting and quite challenging. Very challenging. So about air pollution, big scenario. One of the biggest hospitals in Kenya is called Mama Lucy Hospital. a third of the cases that go there are usually respiratory illnesses. And most of these illnesses are usually caused because of air pollution, that is then caused because of things like burning charcoal, for people cooking indoors and so on. And it's really unfortunate. So actually we run another startup called MC2 together with my co-founder. He's here in this room. And we're using these air monitoring devices to help the government get more data on where they have more pollution and source pollution, and they can do something about it. That's on them. So on Nairobi River, I know there's an initiative going on to clean up Nairobi River. It's called Adopt a River or something. There's a whole funding that's given by the World Bank to the Kenyan government, and there's a whole interesting initiative that's going on. If you go to some places, you'll find, such as Karioko, you'll find like a lot of things have been done. But I'm not in a position to speak for the government, though. What young people can do for soil infertility, really interesting. The thing is, people won't just take you at your word, but they'll take you at what they see. If you show them, they will do it. I don't expect farmers to transition from fertilizers to what you're offering is organic simply because you've told them. But if you did a small model farm, a very small one, with 100% organic inputs, show them how the produce was much better than what they have, and how maybe it costed even less or used less water or something, you will convince them to actually transition. And the moment you help them visualize it, then they can actually believe it and do it. Thank you.
Maybe very quickly to add from my side, thanks very much for the questions. Yes, I think pollution is sometimes really looked through a lens that is very particular focused on one thing, but it is a very, very broad topic. So surely, as you point out, alternatives are very important to be highlighted, especially if you want to look at also prevention aspects. So it's not just only focusing into on the pollution and the pollutants itself and know more about it. It's about the solutions in the end, and therefore maybe kind of raising the awareness of the alternatives that are out there and using that and do proper analysis and really kind of come out with an authoritative voice of this is really what can help you. Now, if you scale it up, then in the end, yes, then everyone needs to know about it as well. And then also, yeah, I mean, the example of soil and then how we deal sometimes with treating the basis for our food production. Maybe we should also look a bit more at sectors and look at all the integrated problems that come together to then see and not do a one-on-one replacement with a alternative. So that would be for, I think, from a science policy perspective, a bit my answer. And then on the other point on what kind of action can you maybe see taken by young people. Now, if you look at the other science policy panels, they have been developing fellowship programs. So having early career scientists build their capacity around the work they do for such a panel, teamed up with others. So maybe this is a pathway that also could be pursued for the new panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our speakers. We will transition to the next phase. If we can have a big round of applause, and thank you again. Apologies for going over time. We will have the next panel, and apologies to the next speakers if you have any time commitments after. We understand if your interventions will be quite short. We do also want to take a picture with the speakers, maybe on the side, so we can gather and huddle for a picture. And we'll move on to the next session, which will be moderated by Mr. Samuel Jose from the Children and Youth Major Group as well. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. This will be a short but sweet panel. It's been my expertise to rush everything but keep it substantive. Thank you very much, Jana, for the previous panel session. I would like to invite to the rostrum now immediately the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastics Pollution Treaty, Ms. Jyoti, if you could join us in the rostrum directly. She will be speaking first. Thank you, Ms. Jyoti. And then we would like to invite Mr. Takehiro Nakamura from the International Environmental Technological Center of the UNEP from Japan. Mr. Takehiro, thank you. And Kartik Verma from YPAN, the Youth Plastics Action Network. And then lastly, we would like to invite Dalia Marquez, the co-chair of the Women's Major Group to UNEP. Thank you. Okay, picture 3, 2, 1. No, done. Another picture, 3, 2, 1. Yes. I request all colleagues to please be seated again. We will start the next session immediately about plastics pollution. And yeah. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, colleagues. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sino Samuel Jose. I'm currently, let me move here. I'm currently serving as a thematic focal point of Green Economy and Resources at the Children and Youth Major Group UNEP, and sometimes shadowing the Jana and Asil in their working group because many of our works are intertwined. So first of all, I would like to highlight that on February 19, 2025, as part of the UNEP ITC Global Dialogue 2025, a dedicated Youth Day was held at UNEP International Environmental Technology Center in Osaka, Japan, co-organized by CYMG and UNEP, and the event brought together youth leaders and university students across Asia and beyond to collaboratively explore solutions to waste challenges and co-develop a shared policy for a circular economy. I'd like to emphasize that it is not the work of the Asian youth alone. The CYMG hosted more than 120 plus global youth across 2 different virtual consultations. That happens early February 2025, where it resulted in the Zero Draft. And the Zero Draft was later adopted in Japan, and we name it Motanai Youth Declaration. The term originates from Japan, conveying a deep sense of regret over waste, and is widely used by environmental advocates to promote the principles of responsible consumption and production. It has 4 points of youth commitments and 13 points of the call to actions. I will not repeat one by one, but yeah, today we'll be, in that spirit, we'll be discussing the issue of plastic pollution, waste, and how we can advance the role of youth to tackle plastic pollution. Now I would like to begin giving the stage to Ms. Jyoti Mathur Philip, the Executive Secretary of the INC on Plastics Pollution Treaty. Ms. Jyoti, you may have the floor.
Thank you so much. And before I begin, can we start by giving a big clap to the Youth Plastic Action Network? This is a direct outcome, and Zohair is sitting right there. This is a direct outcome of the INC. So I'm very, very proud to claim it as one of our success stories. So please, here you have one of the best networks that exist. Allow me to begin by thanking the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP for your kind invitation for me to attend this meeting today and to talk to you a little bit, not only about INC, which you all know a lot about, more than me probably, but a little bit about, the state of the world right now and plastic pollution. So, and your role in it. So at a time of this escalating environmental challenges, and we know that these challenges are not only in pollution, but they're in climate change as well as in biodiversity. This kind of discussion that is taking place today, which empowers youth for intergenerational equity, and your involvement in these dialogues, they will and can strengthen governance across all global frameworks addressing chemicals, waste, pollution, as well as biodiversity and climate change. So I think this is timely and essential, the work that you do, the dialogue that is happening today. Children and youth, you are among the most vulnerable to the impacts of plastic pollution, yet you are also one of the strongest advocates for transformative change. So please keep up your advocacy, your voice, your strength in this field that we are working in. Across continents, young people are mobilizing to address waste and plastic pollution, impacting our ecosystems, our health, and our shared future. Alongside the magnitude of global plastic pollution crisis, we are witnessing, like the Youth Plastic Action Network, the rise of a powerful youth movement that refuses to accept that waste and pollution must define our future. In the context of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, INC, to develop a legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment, we have witnessed a remarkable and ever-growing engagement of youth and children and the youth constituency, and including the Youth for Plastic Pollution Network, as we are talking about. And this keeps us honest. This keeps us on the path. This keeps us on, continuing the negotiations, because we know it is our shared future that matters to all of us. And your voices make us be on the straight and narrow. Your participation in the negotiations, of course, enriches the process. It strengthens our collective efforts and inspires stakeholders across the board. Youth voices bring ideas, innovation, and I was listening from the earlier panel, solutions, bold energy and determination that we need to push for collective action. So you are not passive observers. Please do not believe that you are passive or that you will be passive. You are active participants and key stakeholders. You play a central role in shaping these negotiations and securing a future free from plastic pollution. As you all know, there was great anticipation and even greater hope that INC 5.2 would result in an agreement on the treaty text. While this outcome was not achieved, it is important to recognize that significant progress has been steadily made over the 6 rounds of negotiations, which began in November of 2022. The road ahead may seem challenging, but the urgency of the task is clear. And as you also know, before adjourning its session in August 2025, the committee reaffirmed its steadfast commitment to continue working towards an instrument that delivers real effective solutions, and it agreed to resume negotiations at a future date. The negotiation date is yet to be determined, but you may know that we will be having a session on 7th of February, right after the ISP meeting in Geneva, to elect a new chair. And then we will restart the process again. The path to a pollution-free future is one that we must build collaboratively together, courageously, and with unwavering commitment to intergenerational justice. From our side, UNEP and the INC Secretariat remain steadfast in our support to your work and towards the INC process and a legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. Let us all move together forward. Thank you.
A round of applause, please, to the Executive Secretary. Thank you very much, ma'am, for highlighting your commitment as Executive Secretary to support the meaningful engagement of youth. And of course, the Youth Plastics Action Network, established under the support of CYMG, is now heading to that way to ensure much more productive youth engagement as we are going to have this treaty, hopefully. So now, still in the spirit of the Motana Youth Declaration, in which my working group has the honor to collaborate with the Chemical Waste and Pollution Working Group, and also we are also in CYMG working tirelessly to establish this YPAN, the Youth Plastics Action Network. I would like to follow up you a bit shortly, Ms. Jyoti, before you left us for your another commitment. What will be the important ways to unlock an ambitious plastics treaty that you want to say to the youth? I know you have touched briefly in your intervention, but we want to deep dive more on the pathways that we should take as youth in the process. Thank you, ma'am.
So I think it is extremely important for the youth to continue to engage with member states. It is important for you to not only wait till the negotiation or the INC, but to work in your countries, to campaign, to get to your politicians, to get to your Minister of Environment or Minister of Foreign Affairs, whoever leads the negotiations for the INC, and inform them of your position, of your vulnerability, of your advocacy and actions, because these are the ways that every government is supposed to look at what all stakeholders in the country want while they make their negotiation, sort of positions. So it is important for you to speak in your countries, not wait till you come to, an INC and then you meet the member states, because the positions are made before they come to the INC, and that's where your influence is important. Let me give you an example. Before the Paris Agreement was agreed. Paris Agreement agreed. Before it was agreed, there were huge campaigns that were done in countries where youth led those campaigns, and it's the politicians that they heard the voices of the youth saying that they will not accept another failure to reach an agreement. All of you were probably not even born when the Copenhagen meeting happened, but there was a campaign that was seal the deal. It didn't happen. And then between 2009 and 2015, there was this big movement by youth. Incredibly, it was led by the youth to do it. And countries and politicians heard that you are the future voters. So you have a lot of power. Use it in your countries.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming and joining us. We reckon Ms. Jyoti has another commitment after this, so we thank you very much. Round of applause again to her for the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastics Pollution for joining us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Safe journey and safe trip. Safe trip in Nairobi and whatever the agenda is. Thank you. Now we move to Japan. IETC has been a great partner of CYMG, and we are very proud of the Motanayu Declaration, and we have touched it upon this morning and this afternoon. How can UNEP build on the Motanayu Declaration to strengthen youth engagement and support practical zero waste and circular economy solution at global, regional, and national level? A very complex questions, but we must understand the interplay between these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. During the lunch break, we just launched this Global Waste Management Outlook for Youth. Very, very clear message to youth. In order to really reduce waste, whereby the current projection for the waste generation is exponentially increasing, and you must live with the garbage without really concrete, the action. Based on this is the Global Waste Management Outlook for Youth. If you really look at that, we're really suggesting that the youth and the world will be moving toward the circular economy scenarios. Products are more and more reused, recycled, and then products are more used for a long time before products becomes waste. The best scenario is product is not becoming waste. That means this is a zero waste scenario. In order to do that, we just also started really looking at the different people's attitudes, consumers' attitude, young people's attitudes. We worked last year with the Lloyd's Registry Foundation. They published the report, World Risk Poll 2024 on household waste. This is based on the survey and the questionnaire to various people in different countries. And the result shows that the younger generation, especially your generation, is less concerned about waste generation and waste segregation at household. Why? We had just heard in the climate negotiation, young people are more active and vocal. At the same time, when they go back to the household, they are less concerned about the waste management. Why? You guys are all gathering here at the same time. We also really see that the youth people going to the Starbucks, going to the McDonald's, more used to this lifestyle of generating waste, single-use plastics. So we just really started really seeing youth people, why don't you really change yourself first? Otherwise, if you are really holding our planet future, your waste practices will become the global practice in the future. And then this is going against what we are really projecting for the betterment of the planet. Therefore, we start really talking to the youth. And in discussing this kind of really circular economy approach or zero waste approach, we just decided to organize this, the Youth Day in February. You just really introduced. And through lots of discussion in different regions under the CYMG, they came up with the Mottainai Declaration. It was published in the CYMG website without UNEP logo. This is, I think, the first very, very concrete outcome documents of the youth or CYMG. And congratulations to all of you here in the CYMG colleagues.
Certainly, it is a hard work of every constituency members, those who are joining online in the two online consultations, and those who are joining in person in Osaka. And I think CYMG has been well represented also there. Now, I would like to shift to the youth, to the engine of this whole assembly, represented by our beloved Kartik Ferna. Kartik, what are the core priorities of the Youth Network, YPAN, regarding the Plastics Treaty, and how can youth-led initiative like YPAN mobilize not only meaningful, but also proactive youth engagement in beating up the pollution? Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. So the thing is that the priorities of YPAN or youth in general throughout the negotiation process have been very clear. And Jyoti was here and she left, but she also knows that our standpoint have been already clear. And just to re-emphasize that, we are majorly looking at three elements. The first would be a treaty that embeds human rights and a concept of intergenerational equity within it. And that's talks a lot about including and guaranteeing the right to clean and healthy environment that protects livelihood, that ensure just and equitable transition. The second would be calling for inclusive, transparent, and accountable, yet grounded in right-based participation in all stages, not just during the negotiation, but once the treaty is in place, the development, implementation, monitoring, and governance as well. The third would be that the upcoming treaty should focus on the full life cycle approaches of plastic, which address upstream production, chemical additives, distribution, use phases, waste management, legacy pollution, and other. But beyond these three pillars, there is a lot which is about creating a meaningful youth engagement spaces. I remember when I started engaging, Zuhair is just right in front.
Our predecessor.
So
Fossil.
So Zuhair, I remember that first call where, we were just building a youth position paper, and that got me into the process. So as a constituency, Children and Youth Major Group have worked a lot over the years to create such spaces. And one of the byproduct of such efforts is YPAN. Youth Plastic Action Network, which formally launched during INC 5.2 in Switzerland. So, and this network itself have been built with the concept of inclusion, participation, and of course, at the core, to ensure that youth voices are being heard into the negotiation process. YPEN is more than just a platform just to say we are growing day by day. We are getting more people sign up. That includes young scientists, researchers, innovators, community organizers, activists, and other. But these efforts are not to just scale, but youth must be recognized and resourced and meaningfully integrated into the treaty's governance process. Because ultimately, it's our generation which is inheriting this treaty. The efforts of implementation will be ours, that how we will take this treaty forward. So that's the reason we look forward to have these principles embedded into it. But to end, just as Sir was mentioning, that young people should take action. So we are ready to contribute, we are ready to lead, and we are ready to act. We just urge that the treaty should reflect the ambition, the justice, and long term vision that continues the momentum for decades and decades and build a better future for coming lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause to Kartik, please. I think he has mentioned the key principles that indeed CYMG also aligns with intergenerational equity life cycle approach. And of course, ensuring that this plastics treaty address also including the upstream measures, the virgin plastics, the chemicals of concern. So yeah, because we can't have only a mere waste management treaty. We need a plastics treaty that tackles the whole life cycle of plastics. Thank you, Kartik. And as I remember the night where we picked the names of YPEN, we're debating around that. So yeah, in Zoom. Now, is there any question? We have 2 minutes. We entertain 2 questions. That's all for the day. Is there any more questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Briefly, please. 30 seconds.
I'll try to keep it brief. Mr. Nakamura, I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. I'm not quite sure if it's right that our generation uses more plastic than other generations. Are there any facts that would state that? Because as the speaker before you had stated, it's our generation that through Fridays for Future and other measures showed that we're ready to do something against climate change. I mean, climate anxiety is a new phenomenon. So I think it's especially our generation that shows that we have an issue. So I hope I understood you falsely in that statement that it's our generation that uses Starbucks and so on and creates climate change and misuses our planet.
Thank you, sir. Any other question? The last question of the day for this session. Okay, we have there, but maybe woman. Yes, a lady in the front. Yes, with a pink hijab. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Halima Sharif from Kajiado, the team lead of Women of Hope Able Differently, an organization for women and girls with disability. My question is to the Youth Plastic Action Network and the entire YEA Secretariat. For the Youth Plastic Action Network, how are you planning to involve the youth with disability in your entire activities? Because once we say we are inclusive, we need to have the youths with disability on board so that they can be part and parcel of this climate advocacy and to be well represented in all aspects of advocacy.
Thank you. Okay.
And again, to the YEA, as the conference, the assembly today and yesterday we are really saddened as persons with disability. We don't have our representative as in the panelist. And for us, as nothing about us is without us. So we would wish to have a youth with disability, a child with disability, a woman with disability in the panelist so that they can advocate for their rights. And also the sign language interpreter was missing since yesterday, and that is not a very good picture for the youth assembly. So next time, kindly make sure.
If I may tackle your second part of the question in regards of disability, we will try to, of course, be more diverse next time. Thank you for your input, but sometimes it's also some limitations. For example, either maybe the expert itself or the person that has the competency to speak is not classified as a disabled person, or either we tried to find one, but we didn't get it because because of time constraints or because of institutional limitations. But we'll try to do better next time. Thanks for your input. And for YPAN, Kartik will address more, but certainly they welcome new new coordination team members who are part of the disabled community. And on the interpretation side, I have to say, let us be honest, it requires additional resources, and in which most of the time, this is our homework to demand for more resource mobilization for the youth, so we can have interpretation services. Because I think that's also an important thing, but we have tried to identify it through our registration form apparently, and then apparently there's not any specific requests for a particular facilitation, but if there's any, we will indeed facilitate it better. So thank you very much for your input. Yes, Mr. Takashimura, and then to Kartik, please.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Takehiro, sorry.
This is related to the World Risk Poll 2024. Maybe you can go to the website and then look up for this report. This is based on the questionnaire to the people in different generation and different regions and the different gender. And the question is, are you going to really do the waste segregation at household? Yes or no? And the result is like this. The older you go, higher rate of answering yes. So this was a result of this risk poll. We are trying to really interpret what it means that the younger generation is answering no. More people are answering no to this question. Why is it that? We are still trying to really analyze at the same time. This is just our interpretation or analysis of this result of the poll. So we don't know yet whether this is associated with the younger people's lifestyle, or whether this is related to the way that this poll is picking up the samples. We don't know yet, but this is the kind of really general result and the general trend of this. And then it just even considering the sampling method and then all these things, we believe this is the kind of really general trend of the waste segregation at the household of the different generations. And then this is the kind of really interesting. That's why we started also talking to the younger generation and saying that this is the results at the same time. What do you think about your own consumption patterns? What's your own the household waste food patterns? This is the kind of really question we're posing to the younger generation. And then we try to really analyze your answers and try to really push back to you. And then what kind of reaction you want to really do. So this is it. I couldn't really do it very, very exact language in my previous presentation, but really this question is coming back to you. And then just really looking at the figures, what do you think? How do you want to really answer this question about the younger generations, waste management and desegregation? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Takehiro Nakamura, for the answer. Kartik, briefly, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think there is like being very honest that being a young people, we are also learning as we grow. Just for an example, CYMG was not having a particular mechanism to engage children. And when I joined CYMG, fortunately with the past leadership, Zuhair and Gyubin, we worked together to build a working group called Children's Affair. And that was the start of an engagement, which was not happening earlier. So I think there's always a room and a window where we can build upon. In YPEN itself, we are in the process of formalizing, and we open call for input. We do a lot of consultation to seek a lot of input, and these all things are online, and the information is being shared via mailing list, is being shared via Instagram and other possible channels. We need input, we need people with whom we can work with, and that will ensure the inclusive process. We are open. You can reach out to us, we can work together to explore a lot of things, but at current, we as a young people have a lot of limitation, and I truly acknowledge, and we as a network acknowledges this fact. And but we are always open for more resources, more manpower, to ensure that we are reaching out every communities, not just people with disabilities, but people from tribal communities, indigenous communities, and people from Pacific and far-reaching spaces, right? But we need resources, we need things. So we are very welcome to have inputs, and I'm open to have a dialogue after it.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite for the concluding remarks to the podium. We have here Ms. Dalia Marquez, the co-chair of the Major Group Facilitating Committee. Please, you may join us on the stage for a brief concluding remarks. Thank you. Ms. Dalia? Yes.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. And for closing remarks, I just want to express my grateful for all the speakers in this panel. And as we conclude this session, I want to emphasize that the launch of the Youth Beat Pollution campaign is not just a symbolic moment, it is a call to action. Therefore, I invite you to join to this amazing campaign. And youth across the world are already leading with creativity, courage, and determination. And with this campaign, they give us a full platform to amplify their voices, to connect their local solutions to global decision makings. Youth as change makers are not the leaders of tomorrow. They are the leaders of the present. So my ask to you is to join to the campaign, to support them, and to strengthening the voices of young people beating pollution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's beat pollution together. Thank you. Now, I would like to close this session, and a friendly reminder that the consultation upon the executive summary of the Global Youth Declaration will happen here. Okay. Before I yield back to the team, the GYD, I would like to thank all speakers. I would like to also thank my dear old friend Zuhair Ahmed Koshik from the Civil Society Unit, formerly the Global Coordinator of CYMG, that has been present in here and showcasing his passion to plastics pollution. Thank you very much, Mr. Zuhair. Thank you, Excellencies. Thank you, Mr. Takehiro. Thank you, Kartik. Thank you, Ms. Dalia. And hereby, my name is Sino Samuel Jose. I hereby close this meeting and see you in the next Youth Environmental Assembly. Thank you.